Hi, welcome everyone to the class of business to business marketing. So, in the last class we had completed, we had discussed the balance scorecard and how it is useful for organizations. So, this balance scorecard approach was developed by two professors at the Harvard Business School, and it has been one of the most cited or most used strategic technique around the world. So, today almost all companies, at least good companies, they use the balance scorecard to understand and meet their objectives. So, today we will continue from with that, and we will talk about how what is the balance scorecard strategy map, and then we will talk about a few examples. So, these examples which I have taken are actually from the same case that was published in HBR by the original authors. So, let us continue and let try to understand it better. So, what is this balance scorecard strategy map? So, as you can understand, like strategy is something that helps you to understand how to reach your objectives, your goals more in a much effective manner, right. So, this is a word which generally comes from the military base, right. How do you understand balance scorecard strategy map? Now, it says that these maps provide a visual representation of a company's critical objectives. Now, for example, when you want to explain something to a person who is learning from you, you cannot just tell it in bullet points or highlights if the person might not understand. So, you have to be very clear with each objective that the student or the learner has to understand, then only he will be or she will be clear about it, right. The same thing happens in a balance scorecard. It does a visual representation of the company's critical objectives and the relationships among them which will drive the organizational performance, right. So, what are the objectives which can affect and how, what is the relationship among them? So, once you understand, then only it becomes easier for anybody to reach their desired goal, which is generally the the revenue improvement or productivity enhancement of the organization, right. It also gives the employees a very clear line of sight into how their jobs are linked to the overall objective of the organization. Now, each individual, they see in an organization there might be hundreds or thousands, even lakhs of individuals, right. Now, it is very difficult for them to know what is their exact role in the organization, how are they going to impart value to the organization, and that is a bigger challenge for the leaders in the organization to explain these objectives to their employees. So, here balance scorecard exactly tries to point out how to give this insight or give a clear understanding to these employees about their overall role in the organization and how they can work efficiently, so that the overall objective of the organization is fulfilled, right. So, it helps them to enable or it enables them to work in a coordinated and collaborative fashion towards the company's desired goals. So, this is not a small this is not so easy as it looks, because you might be working with, let us say, in a small organization in a SME like 10 to 20 people or 100 people maximum, or maybe 300 people. But what happens when the organization size increases? Very interestingly, I was reading a book called recently Sapiens, where the author has talked about that you can control in a very tangible manner when the size of a group or a tribe or an organization is almost up to maximum 150 people, right. Once this threshold number crosses, it becomes extremely difficult to unite them and bind them and take them around towards a towards an objective, right. So, this challenge obviously organizations, large organizations will face. What is that binding force? How would you drive that objective into the employee's mind, right. So, strategy maps help in two things. One, change in business orientation from industrial to information age. So, there has been a complete change in the way businesses are functioning today. So, earlier days when it was more into, we were in the industrial age. So, we were talking about inventory, we were talking about cost reduction through minimizing the raw material cost and all. So, this was something like we were managing in a very elementary manner, like through ledgers and balance sheets and all. So, that was one period of time, but with information age, when collaboration increased and internet facilities and networking improved, things changed drastically. Now, most of the businesses, right, now today they are, even they have completely given up their inventory management system, their supplier management system and all to outside organizations to handle these things, right. So, there has been a continuous change, and today organizations, you will not believe that there are organizations which have completely given up their processing part, the supplier management part and everything to outside organizations. The second thing is how to create the value for the organization. So, now every company wants to add value, right, wants to do better, improve its profitability and all. So, how do they achieve it? So, today we will take up some example, one example largely from the same article of HBR which I have picked up. I will also give you the source of this article, so that if you want you can read it. So, as said earlier, balance scorecard has 4 important points, right. So, the final objective is always the revenue growth. So, this is the final objective, higher revenues and margin. So, the financial perspective is always the most important perspective for any organization. But how do you achieve it? So, there are 4 important parameters. So, for example, let us say the 4 important parameters are financial, customer perspective, internal business process perspective and the learning and growth perspective. So, learning and growth perspective affects the internal business process perspective, and to achieve that, to achieve, for example, let us say suppose a company wants to achieve financially growth, for example profit, higher revenue, market share and all. So, for to do that it will require a better customer, to understand its customer well, right. So, is the customer satisfied, will they retain stay with us or not, and how they are spending, so they will need to understand. And to understand this customer perspective, they also need to understand how the internal business processes are being conducted at the moment, how they are performing, right. So, for example, how to reduce the cycle time and reduce the defects, so that customer is more happier and all. So, that would be another important thing. So, to order to achieve the customer satisfaction, you need to improve upon this factor. Finally, in order to improve the internal business process perspective, you need to understand the learning and growth perspective, that how the organization, the employees are better trained in quality management tools, on how they are they understand, let us say better productivity, better let us say production system, the entire production, how to zero down their defects, how to improve upon their efficiency, how to bring in better let us say more efficient processes into the system, so that there is less of wastage of time, there is less defects, so, and the overall organization profit finally improves. There is one case which again as I am saying repeatedly, this has been taken from the article of HBR. So, this is Mobil's turnaround case which the authors have explained, and I am trying to bring it to in front of you, right. So, what happened? Mobil is a company which completely made a change in their profit and their approach, and they became a very successful organization. They turned around the entire profitability of the company and their position in the market. Now, what exactly was this case? Mobil executed a new strategy, right. So, this company was into oil, so and lubricants and all. So, Mobil executed a new strategy to reconstruct itself from a centrally controlled manufacturer of commodity products to a decentralized customer driven organization. So, as you know, oil and gas, they are generally commodity kind of products. So, there is nothing that you can differentiate. So, generally you do not do any branding or anything for that, very rarely. Yes, companies are doing, nobody denies, but then that is a new thing which is coming up. So, how to brand, even create brand and act as a differentiator for commodity products. But generally if you understand, commodities are something which are regular products, it is very difficult to create a differentiation for them. A major part of the strategy was to target consumers who were willing to pay price premiums for gasoline if they could buy at fast friendly stations that were outfitted with excellent convenience stores. Now what does it say? So the company understood that for consumers, although they are buying the same gasoline, right, which is a very basic commodity, they were ready to pay higher premium if they would be provided a better service, a faster service, and if the people in the stations, the gasoline stations where it is delivered, now if they are friendly in nature, and if there are convenience stores around it, close to it, then they could make some other purchases, their daily routine purchases. So that would be much better for them. So they realized this was very important from the customer perspective, right. Now making those changes, right. So the purchases that happened after making those changes, after understanding those changes, Mobil, was able to increase its profit margin and its revenue from non-gasoline products. The same commodity products which was earlier we were saying is a non-differentiating product, this cannot be differentiated. Now they brought in some kind of a differentiation into that, right. And using the strategy map, Mobil increased its operating cash flow by more than 1 billion per year, $1 billion US per year, right. So let us look at this case more descriptively. So this is how it goes. So increase Mobil's return on capital employed. So the how Mobil has increased its ROCE, that is what is the case talking about. So first thing, as you have understood, the first point is most important point is the financial perspective, right. So in order to improve the financial perspective, the company had to look into two important parameters. One, so revenue growth strategy, so this one, right. So the revenue growth strategy and the productivity growth strategy, right. So it was important to understand, to improve the revenue growth strategy, the company had to understand the customers' needs and differentiate accordingly. Now to achieve that, what they could do? Now two important things they could do, two important parameters. One, introduce new sources of non-gasoline revenue through expanded convenience stores. So near the gasoline dealers and agencies, they as the customer wanted, they created some convenience stores which would sell other products and which would be useful for the customers, and thus it could act as a beneficial benefit for Mobil, right. And the second point was for improving revenue, sell more premium brands to increase customer profitability. Since customers were ready to pay premium, so they wanted to sell more premium brands. Now what was the metrics that was used to measure this part? They used revenue from non-gasoline products as a metric, and profit margin on each product was another metric. Now metric, I hope you understand metric. Metrics are basically nothing but quantifiable measures, okay, through which you can measure somebody's performance or some process's performance, right, whether it is doing good or not good, that is how you decide. So these are the two metrics that they used for the same, right. Now coming to the the other part, so sell more premium brands. So what was the measurement index? Now sales volume compared with the rest of the industry, and ratio of premium products sold to regular products sold. So these were the two metrics for these two measures, okay. Now coming towards the productivity growth strategy, where they wanted to maximize the use of existing assets and integrate the business to reduce total delivered cost. So what was the parameter they thought of? Now to become the industry cost leader in every supply chain category. So this was one of the objective. The other objective was maximize the use of the existing assets. So the company thought this is the best way to improve our productivity. Now what is the metric to understand this, to become the most effective cost leader? Now Mobil's cost per gallon compared with the rest of the industry was the metric that they used to measure. Now please understand, you need to pause and look at each point carefully and think about it, so that you can grasp the meaning of it, right. So when I am saying, maybe I going little fast, so you need to slow down and listen to each point and then rethink about it. The second point, which where they wanted to maximize the use of existing assets, right. Here they took up one more metric, which is the actual cash flow compared with the business plan. Now what is the plan they had in mind, and what is the actual cash flow happening? So that would also help them to understand how they could use the, are they able to use the existing assets properly or not, right. Now, as I had said, if you remember, now to achieve the financial perspective, they needed to some customer perspective, right. Okay. So, to do this, they looked at certain points. So, they thought delighting the customer is a very important parameter to, obviously if a customer is delighted, is happy, then only he would try to buy more of any company's product and try to be and would be loyal to that company, right. So, looking at the product service attributes, although these points were like the one which you see, there is not dark. So, it was already there, right. So, safety, cleanliness, product quality was okay, but speedy purchase was one thing which the customer wanted, and somehow the company had not provided this feature till then at that time, right. So, now the company wanted to do something, create a speedy approach so that they could improve the speed of purchase, and this interestingly they created a a word which came from one of the shop floor person, right, one of the person from the marketing team or something, who gave a speed chase something kind of a term, and they created a complete process, a new process which helped them to understand how this delivery could be speeded up, could be expedited, could be made more faster. Okay. Next thing that the in order to improve the customer perspective, the company understood that relationship is very important. Now, friendly, helpful workers. So, in the gasoline station, you need people who are friendly and who are helpful, and recognize the customer loyalty is another important point. Okay. Okay. So, to understand this, so the metrics that they use was share of targeted customer segments and mystery shopper rating. Now, what is this mystery shopper rating? Now, mystery shoppers are those people, every month the company would send some people in disguise. So, these people would go to these convenience stores and the gasoline stations and try to purchase something, behave as if they are purchasing something, and speak to those customers who were buying there at that point of time, and take their opinion about the kind of service, the kind of products being made available and everything, right. So, they had almost made some 23 points on basis of which they could measure the customer satisfaction index. Okay. The most important thing that the company realized, Mobil realized, was that the author has said in this article is that two things they were missing earlier, and those two things were like win-win dealer relationships. Now, offer more consumer products, one, and help the dealers develop their business skill. Now, what does it mean? They realize that if the dealers are happy, if their profit margins are improving, then automatically it would create a win-win situation for both the company and the dealers, right. And to achieve that, they realize that better products have to be served and help the dealers achieve better business skills, or that means how to keep the customer happy, the behavior that helping the customers and all these things that need to be, the training has to be given to them, right. So, dealer profitability will also increase and dealer satisfaction will also increase, and this will ultimately what will happen, the customer satisfaction index will improve. Now, coming to the third point, in order to achieve the customer perspective, the company realized that internal process perspective. So, this is something which needs to also improve. Now, what is this? Now, first of all they need to create some features, like for example, create non-gasoline products and services. So, as you have already understood that they wanted to create convenience stores where customers wanted that they could buy something that they were, because you see nowadays time was always a problem with, is a problem with everyone, right. So, if they are getting everything at one point, right, so it becomes easier for the even the customer to put gasoline to their vehicle and also buy certain items, so that they can directly save time and reach their home easily. So, creating non-gasoline products and services was the first point, right. Now, what was the metrics used to understand that? New product acceptance rate and new product return on investment. So, the products that they were storing in the now convenience stores, now what was the acceptance rate of these products? So, is it really the product that the customer was desiring, or that you are trying to keep something the customer is even does not want that? So, that was important to understand. Second thing was, what is the return on investment? So, if you are keeping a product in your store, what is the ROI? So, largely you talk about ROI, right. So, what is the ROI you are achieving? If it is not satisfactory, if the company is making losses, then those kind of items should be rather avoided. Second feature was, in this internal process perspective, was understanding the customer segments better and build best in class franchise teams. So, it is always important for any organization, and the most interesting thing is that companies actually do not know how to segment the market and create different customer segments. It looks very simple, the word segmentation looks very simple from outside, but when you try to work on it as a, suppose in a live case, or you are the manager of a company or a leader of a company and you want to understand what are the segments for your product, it is not that easy, right. So, and we will go in deep when I am really talking to you about segmenting the B2B market, I will explain you more about it. So, anyway, just for this time period you understand that understanding customer segments better and build best in class franchisee teams was very important. And how would they measure it? The share of the target market and dealer quality ratings. So, these two important metrics would be used for it. The third feature that they wanted was improve the hardware performance and inventory management, deliver products on specification and on time, and become the industry cost leader. So, they wanted to have an inventory management system and deliver products on time and become and do that in a cost effective manner, so that they are the industry cost leader, right. Now, what measurement metrics did they use? Refinery yield gap, unplanned downtime. So, there is, if there is a downtime, the machines are not working or something. So, that is unnecessary harassment to the customer and is a waste of time and money for profitability for the organization. So, how much of unplanned downtime is happening? What is the inventory level regularly being maintained? What is the stock out rate? Stock out rate means that how many times it has happened that the product what the customer wants is not available. So, it is out of stock. So, what is the stock out rate? And activity based cost versus the competition. So, everything, all these points would be used as the different metrics, so that the company can improve upon it and become a industry cost leader. The fourth point was improve environmental health and safety. So, to do this, the company understood that we need to reduce the number of environmental incidents and safety incidents. So, there should not be any kind of accident or any kind of any issue that can create environmental problems or safety issues for the people, right. So, this was one more point that was required as an internal process perspective, and the company needed to improve upon this, right. But in order to improve the internal process perspective, even one more thing that was important from the company's point of view was to use this to understand this learning and growth perspective. Now, what is learning and growth perspective? So, every time when you do something, you are continuously learning, right. So, maybe when you are, suppose you are, let us say you are working with a machine. So, the first time you take lot of time, right, and you make lot of mistakes in handling the machine. Second time, third time, fourth time, as it goes on, the time consumption also decreases and the number of defects also decreases. Okay. So, what happens here? Now, the company felt promoting functional excellence, developing leadership skills and create an integrated view of the company among employees. So, what kind of functional excellence and what kind of leadership skills are required, and do the employees understand them, and if yes, how do they look at it, what perspective do they look? Generally what happens in organizations, you must be knowing that each functional department or each functional system tries to achieve a target in a individualistic manner, right. But that is not necessary that would align with the overall objective of the company, right. So, individually a functional department might do well, but if you look at the overall objective of the company, it might be hampering the overall objective. For example, let us take a simple example. If the finance department is given performance is measured on basis of how much of profitability it makes or saves money, then it would try to bring down all the raw materials which are lesser in cost, machines which are less in cost and all. As a result, what happens? It is possible that the finance department might achieve its target, but the product and the kind of delivery that you are making, final product, that might be not good, or that might not sync with what the customer is demanding. So, as a result, what happens? The customers would not buy your product. So, the marketing department or the sales department suffers. But in the whole run, what happens when the marketing and sales suffers, the objective of the company is lost, the profitability, the bottom line of the company is adversely affected, right. So, how do you measure it? Ratio of strategic skills to job coverage. So, what kind of job you are doing, what kind of strategies are required, skills are required. So, that is to be checked. Okay. Second point is adopt new technology that encourages and aids process improvements. So, every process needs continuous improvement, right. So, if you can bring in new improvements into your process, automatically your performance will enhance. So, on time deployment of systems. So, this was one of the matrix that the company used. And finally, the the perspective, the final measure or objective was aligning the business and personal goals. So, business goal and the personal goal, the individual's goal and organizational objective, both have to be streamlined, both have to sync, both have to be in a symbiotic relationship, right. So, how to do that? Now, personal balanced scorecards, so individuals personal scorecards and employee feedback would be taken. So, by taking all these 4 features and the different measures what they wanted to achieve, they did it, and the result was that in 2 years time the author has said that the company made a turnaround and it became a very highly profitable company. So, this is about the Mobil's strategy map. Okay. Now, what we can do is I will take you around one more small case, right. Now, this is about a company called Rockwater. So, Rockwater is a global engineering and construction company, right, which was a leader in underwater engineering and construction. So, there is a CEO of this company who is Norman Chambers, right. Chambers knew that the industry's competitive world had changed dramatically, and in the 70s he said that we are a bunch of guys in wet suits driving off barges into the North Sea with burning torches. So, this is what Chambers said. So, we are nobody, but we are a bunch of guys wearing some suits and getting into the sea with some light and trying to see what is happening, how work is being done. But competition in the subsea contracting business had become very intense, right, and many smaller companies even left that industry. So, they thought there is no point in staying in the construction company, in the construction business, because it is highly competitive and not much of profit is left. In addition, the focus of the competition had shifted. Several leading oil companies also wanted to develop long term partnership with their suppliers rather than choose suppliers based on low price competition. Now, Chambers, he developed a vision with his team of people, he developed a vision, and he said, as our customers preferred provider, we shall be the industry leader in providing the highest standards of safety and quality to our clients. So, this is the vision they made, ki let us provide the highest standards of safety and quality. He also developed a strategy to implement the vision. Now, what was the strategy to implement the vision? So, the strategy was services that surpass customers' expectation and needs, high level of customer satisfaction, continuous improvement of safety, equipment reliability, responsiveness and cost effectiveness, high quality employees and realization of shareholder expectations. These 5 points. Okay. Now, with this there are few questions that will be asked. Now, if this was the situation, what measures should be used to translate Rockwater's strategic objectives into tangible goals, right. So, let us use the 4 perspectives proposed in the balanced scorecard and try to understand Rockwater's position. Okay. So, the first point is the financial perspective. How do we look to shareholders? So, when you talk about shareholders, the financial perspectives can include the following measures of importance. 1, these are tentative answers, right, what we have thought. So, maybe the return on capital employed, ROCE, the cash flow of the company, the project profitability and the sales backlog, right. So, these 4 points can be used as the metrics to understand how the company is performing in terms of the financial perspective, right, how they are doing. In terms of customer perspective, how do customers see us is very important. So, a pricing index to track the competitive position based on price, customer ranking survey to rank customer perceptions of Rockwater services, customer satisfaction index to measure firm performance, and finally market share to provide objective evidence that improvements in customer satisfaction were being translated into the tangible benefits. So, these 4 points could be used as to understand the customer perspective, right. Now, the third point, the third feature is the internal business perspective. Now, how does the company work on it? Now, a safety index, tender success rate and hours spent with key prospects discussing the work, right. So, the company could identify and classify all undesired events with the potential for which can create harm to people, property or process, and by identifying them that can control them, right. So, a safety index is very important. Similarly, a tender success rate, how many times you are applying, what rates you are applying and what is your success rate, right. And similarly, hours spent with key prospects discussing work to emphasize the role of the importance of building relationship, right, with the customers and satisfied customers. The last thing was the learning and growth perspective. Now, can we continue to improve and create value? So, to do this, the percentage revenue from the new services to track the success of innovation, because innovation is a must. Continuous improvement index to track the rate of improvement of several key operational measures such as safety and rework, right. A staff attitude survey and the number of employee suggestions to measure how supportive and empowering the work environment is, right. And finally, the revenue per employee to measure the outcomes. Okay. So, by doing this 4 strategies, by using these 4 pillars of the balance scorecard, you can have different answers from what I am giving. So, this is only a tentative. So, you can maybe change your answer, you can maybe get better answers, right. I have no issues. So, you can stop, understand the case and then maybe work on it the way you like. So, this is a task, you can take this task, write down the strategic objectives of your organization, take any organization that you are either working with, so or you are a student wherever you are. Create a strategic map by linking the objectives and list down measures that it uses to track the performance, right. So, take this as an exercise and I will wind up my class here. So, this is all for the day. So, we will meet in the next lecture. Till then, take care. Thank you very much.